Hey, good morning, folks. We're going to continue with art production for the Spelljammer Combat Exploration book that we're building that will publish on the DMsGuild as soon as it's done. So I'm going to kick through my spiel here real quick, check my signal, make sure we're coming through, and then we'll get into an hour or so of art. So hold on real quick. Then we'll get into, let's see where we're at. That sounds pretty good. I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter, so if you want to get announcements that I'm live in the future, you can follow me on Twitter as well, at Phil Kearney, like in the description down below. Furthermore, hey, let's go through my spiel here real quick while I punch signal across the Discord to say hello to folks. My name is Phil Kearney. Hi, I create role-playing game supplement PDFs that I publish for people to consume. I focus my attention right now on 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. There is a slew of links in the description down below that point to different work that I've produced already. It's all 100% free preview. So it publishes on the DMsGuild. If you click into any of the titles, when you go to each individual book, there'll be a single image of the cover on the left-hand side of the screen. If you're on mobile, there'll be an eye icon on the right-hand side of the screen. You can click on that to see the preview. If you're on a desktop, there'll be a link underneath each individual product page has the book cover, and then underneath the book cover has full preview. If you click full preview or the eye icon, it throws open a PDF, and you can read the entire document cover to cover at no cost. If you're an art enthusiast, there's about 150 some odd different illustrations that we've produced throughout those works. If you're a D&D enthusiast in particular, then certainly be welcome to check out the mechanics and the different ideas we've had for DMs and player additional content. If it adds value to your game or you think it's interesting, consider making a purchase to consider more behavior like this. And in addition, let's go ahead and get ourselves going. Like, subscribe, bell icon, all helps push the algorithms for us to get more visibility as these we create PDFs, so we go through the entire production cycle. Hey Hornetico, it is good to see you, my dude. Oh great, I'm glad this was my art director. My gal, it has an intense eye for color, which makes her a blessing to be in my life, considering I don't see any. But yeah, it's this was her suggestion to mute down the red that we had in the Spelljammer title, and I'm happy to hear your feedback that it is looking good. So that is yet another gold star to the home team. So thanks, Hernandico. We're just gonna freewheel a little bit. We have a very low work docket today. We're finishing out the first act of Light of Xaryxis, and actually it's the first chapter. We still need to do a couple of Neogi characters, but the first couple chapters of the adventure, for Light of Xaryxis, all we need to do are some sailors and some passengers. So I'm just going to make some generic NPC art, and it shouldn't be a difficulty at all. So you can see from my color palette over here that I had been working on the Eberron cartography last night, some as a palette cleanser for the work I've been doing for the Spelljammer layouts that we've been working on. Just to dive into that real quick with y'all, we have resolved the challenge that I had been facing for the past week or so on breaking up the movement mechanics. There is, I tell you what, guys, building raw mechanics for 5e on how to scale your map from 5-foot scale to 100 million mile scale is well, this is why we get paid the big bucks, because we do the things that others don't. But we've now had to, we broke that out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It took 8 pages for us, which we originally had about 2 pages of text that was crammed together. We ended up having to blow it out to 8 pages for room with diagrams and just breaking down the minutia of like, what does scale mean? How do you go here? I'll just zoom in for a second and I'll actually get to work. But beyond actually explaining like what ships are, how do you build ships, what's the cost involved with it, what's the size that they consume, what's their hit points, what's a ship? After we resolve all of that, now we start getting into the combat of like how do you actually move ships. So we had to first break down the logic of how fast can they move per day, and that means how far can they move per round. And then inside of that, what's the actual distance that you can actually engage in combat? So let's further scale down movement per round to be able to get into a context of like how far away can you actually fight on ships, which we broke down individually. And then we broke down, well, if you have these 3 different scales of combat on ships at the 500, 50, and 5-foot scale, how do you actually depict that in game? Like, how do you physically manage the space of your map to be able to move from the 500 to 50 to 5-foot scale? And obviously this diagram is still incomplete as well. But after breaking down, like, how do you even show these ships operating at different scales? What is the actual process during a round of combat from moving from one scale to another, which we've successfully broken down and need to add diagrams for. Now we can talk about like, well, honestly, now we broke that all down, you might not actually need to have all those because you can resolve some of that as theater of the mind, as just a narrative skip step of I don't actually need to have this narrated if I'm not going to actually engage in combat at that scale. So now that we know how to do it, we can discuss discerning what is actually useful for your table. And now that we know how to scale in and scale out and what the different ranges of combat are, there's a difference between, is the target that I'm gauging my relative distance to, is it a stationary object, or is it a moving target, which means different things. If you're trying to engage a ship at the 50-foot scale and be really close to be able to get claws on it, per se, then it's going to make a big difference of, is that object moving or is that object just in a floating still orbit? This is a very different way to engage them. There's illusion, like being able to run away from you is a big factor. So if you're trying to grab something that can't run away, you can zoom into it and grab it. It's easy. But if it's running away from you, that's something that needs to be considered. So we had to break down the difference between stationary and moving targets, which opened up the door for us to be able to have things like pursuits and chases, all those niggly bits that like, it's a horse chase is pretty obvious versus like a blacksmith forge chase. You don't chase blacksmith forges, you can defend one, right? You can only defend a building, you can't run away with it. So there's a difference there, which allowed us the opportunity to break that down. And once we broke that down, then there was all the really cool mechanics of like, if I have a ship that can sit inside of your gravity plane and you can carry my weight, technically you're towing that vehicle instead of chasing it. If my goal is to be a pirate and steal your ship, the best way to do that is to lock into your gravity field so you can't shake me out of it, so I can just dump troops onto your deck with a boarding craft that is now locked in orbit with you that you can't easily escape. There's rules behind aligning gravity plane, charging to be able, like, we have these different scales that you can perceive ships in, but just because I'm looking at you at the 50-foot or 5-foot scale doesn't mean my ship isn't moving 10,000 miles this round. How do we resolve that? Well, we have the term of charging, and then there's opportunity attacks that go into that as well. So all of this, it sounds like a lot, but it's pretty easy to say, hey, if you've got a ship that moves closer than 500 feet, just zoom in and look at the 50-foot scale, and here's a little block of map that we've reserved on the table for your ship and that other ship that you're now engaging with to be there temporarily while you're having this dogfight. And when you guys break because you want to get away from each other, just ignore that map and shift back to the 500-foot scale. And you don't even need the 5-foot scale unless you're specifically attempting to board them. So know what you're trying to do, what your objective in the encounter is, and then you can scale it appropriately. So it sounds like a lot of steps. It's just you have to really break it down so that you are speaking specifically about what is going on inside of the adventure space. And once you have a good, deep understanding of how spatial mechanics work in an almost infinite space, how can you break that down to be something that you can consume in bite-sized chunks? Once you grok all of that, it's like I said, it's an 8-page read, and obviously there's a lot of space here that we've opened up for diagrams and showing how ships can stand and maneuver with each other and arrows to point at stuff. That'll be our next heavy lift, which I'm not going to deal with right now. I'm instead going to take some more mental break from the heavy mechanics and depth of this, and instead just make some characters. So, but that's where we're at. We've solved those we've solved that riddle of being able to break the text apart, which was what was really slowing us down. And now you can see it's flowing into the ship roles. Now we can start breaking out how the text sits on each page for the roles. And we've obviously been processing that. And we're now down into the weapon crews. We've been able to make space for the ship melee weapons and stuff. And obviously, when we start filling these pages with the diagrams and illustrations, we'll be able to zoom in more closely and chew on this content more intimately. So we've got all the melee stuff broken down. We've got all of the ranged ship mechanics broken down. We still have to struss up we have to build the sidebar and the charts for this section. So you've hit, we're still doing layouts here, but we haven't finished the dressing. So layouts are still looking good. We've got all the space that we need to be able to illustrate this stuff. Down into the ranged siege weapons, we've broken those out into some generous spaces for us to put some weapon stuff in. Through the mounted weapons, and now we're into ammunition, and I need to stress up the special ammunition that we've developed for using weapons, so like tow cables, shrapnel, tanglefoot splatters that you can dump on people's decks to prevent people from moving around, dumping pitch on people, different type of ammunition that we've developed that we need to drop into here. And now you can see here down in the squadrons and fleets commanding multiple ships at once. We haven't broken down that formatting yet. So that is where we're at in formatting. But once you get out of the squadron stuff, and we still have to break down maintaining the crews and ship ranks and making repairs. But you can see after that, we've gotten spellcasting already broken down and formatted. Pretty much everything else in the book after that has been formatted. So formatted, but not dressed. So like you can see here, this table hasn't been dressed. This table hasn't been dressed. This table hasn't been dressed. But it's all been broken down into its general page layout. So we're making progress on this. I'm expecting that by this time next week, we'll have resolved the rest of the ammunition, maintenance, squadrons and fleet section. That's about 12 pages of text that haven't been properly broken down or dressed yet. So we should be done with processing that mark by next week. Where is it? It's down. Yeah, this is where it starts with the squadrons and fleets. We should finish breaking this content down here. It's about 12 pages that hasn't been formatted yet. So once we get finished with formatting that, we'll be able to go through the rest of the book with the page dressing that I keep talking about, like the charts and charts and tables and sidebar breakdown. Once we have all that broken down, then the only thing left that we have are diagrams. Once the diagrams are put in place, then we'll see where the actual holes in the pages are that we can still fill with like actual illustrations. So layout, dressing, diagrams, illustrations. Those are the 4 steps of the process that we go through to be able to take the raw format text that we got back from our editor to be able to dress it into a PDF to then be able to publish. There's still a lot of work to do. These things are, and it doesn't help that it's a 100-page document that requires a huge amount of just labor that goes into it in the backline, which isn't necessarily interesting for people to watch me build charts, like to go into Excel and like cut, paste, edge the borders so that you're changing the cell length, and then export and drop it back into Word. That isn't necessarily very sexy content that people are interested in watching, but it absolutely happens in the background. So that's the work that's happening in the background. And meanwhile, the tokens need to be made. So we're making tokens on live time here on screen with y'all. And hopefully when we get done with these tokens, we'll see. You can see that I've got the Calabra, that brush that we've been using in the Eberron cartography there, switch that over so we have just a round eraser working for us. But yeah, we're trying to focus our attention a little bit more on the stuff that's entertaining for people in general here. But once we get done with all the actual layout of the book and have all the tables built out and have the page sitting where everything is needed, and we get into the back end, after we get done with the charts, the tables, and the sidebar formatting, once those are out of the way, then we can actually do like the actual trade dress, which is the page background, which we have a filler right now that we've been using, but we'll be able to create the official background imagery for the pages, as well as like the page number and the bottom trim, the sidebar trim here, anything that we would want to have, like at the top of the page, like just the visual assets that go on each page. And we can also build a navigation bar in there as well that we'll be able to hyperlink to the table of contents in each section. So progress is being made. It is coming along. It takes a while to build it. Again, one of the intentions of this channel is to basically have an ongoing diary of the production process of building a 100-page PDF for a role-playing game that a lot of people don't know what goes on. Like all the details and all the effort and all the components that are required to make those things happen. If you ever get into creating your own content, like attempting to produce professional-looking content to publish for money, these are the challenges that you are going to run into. So I am more than happy to provide a look in at what that process is for me, at least, as a point of reference and perspective. So maybe if you check the channel and stick around, you can find some of the stumbling blocks that I run into and how I solve them, so that you have solutions for yourself if you're moving forward in this ridiculous hobby of ours, or maybe it's just interesting watching a professional absolutely just choke, because that's occasionally what happens. Occasionally I get lost in a place where I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to do next, and I have to fight my way through it. So I've been an artist for 30 years. Professionally, I started doing black and white illustration for third-party content back in. Actually, I'm sorry. I've only been doing it since '98, I think. So that's like however many years. Been DMing for 30 some odd years, but only been creating PDFs and game supplements since Ravnica came out, which is what started me on this quest of creating content when Wizards didn't figure out how to do color mana. That was my catalyst to starting my own role-playing supplements, because I had assumed that Wizards would have used Ravnica as the opportunity to fuse Magic the Gathering to Dungeons and Dragons, and they didn't do it. So I was like, well, apparently they're never going to do it, so it's up to me. And that's when I started making the color mana spell point variant rules, which is the first professional production that I created. And I fell in love with the process. So here I stay. So in the Light of, I'm going to go ahead and talk spoilers, yo. Light of Xaryxis, in the first chapter, you have to run away from whatever home world you decide to start on, and in the process, you and a bunch of essentially refugees jump onto this boat with Captain Sartell take off to the stars not knowing what is going to happen to you. So it's that's glossed over a lot, but it's a great opportunity for you to have some character engagement in your story about how do you handle with the crisis of losing your home. There's going to be a lot of heartfelt emotions on that boat for the however long they stay aboard with you, but you drop that ship pretty quickly and jump on board the second the second wind is the GIF boat that you'll run across once we get to the Rock of Brawl. You'll be able to get out of that basically civilian refugee boat and jump on board with an exploration crew that's more equipped to deal with danger. So it's a nice upgrade. It's a good change. It's a needed change. I like the narrative that goes on behind the second wind. But we are creating a sailor token right now. This is just a generic NPC. Merge down. Works the boat. But there is no real boat working, quote unquote, that's needed in 5th edition Spelljammer. So, but there are a few weapons aboard the ship that requires somebody properly trained in working those weapons, and that is what the sailors provide: a competent crew that are proficient in working siege weapons that can be commanded by your characters during combat when you encounter there's 2 encounters that you have aboard. So Starmaz and Yogi. Itchy face. Restart. Let's go make this a bit bigger. We'll be back online tonight to work on some more Eberron cartography. I am super looking forward to that. I think we'll be working on. I think we're working on floor grit today. The texture, the crystal textures across the floors in the dirty zone, and building cobblestone slates or rocks to stand on in the clean air zones. The water is done. I still need to fix the flooded hall, the doors, the guardhouse, and put in some furniture. But otherwise, that map is going to be done. So it's very possible, possibly next week, we could be done with the underground laboratory map and start working officially on the village, which is the last significant map that we need to build. So it's serviceable enough as is, but it needs to be professionally polished. You know, we need to put in all the stuff. So I am looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being done with the underground. There's been a 25 session build. It has been ridiculously heavy lift to get that 75-inch map made, but I'm really happy with the results so far. So I'm happy with all these results. It's something I didn't do a lot of artwork in the past 9 months because I've been focused so much on writing mechanics and tech development that I, for the most part, sat artwork down for quite a while. Other than the cartography stuff that I've been doing, but now I'm actually getting back into sketching again, and I can feel that the break that I took has breathed a lot of somehow confidence into the art, that I'm not really concerned. Like I feel that the where the ink goes is where it's supposed to be a lot more than what had been previously. I doubted. I was trying to steer the ship, as it were, a lot more previously till now, and I just kind of made that agreement that I would try to take more of a back seat of the conscious decision making in this artwork, and let the muse run the show, and trust that she knows what needs to be done. And so far, I've been rewarded quite a bit with me just feeling a lot more peace with the process of creating all these pieces. I just feel that they're being gifted through me, and that's a wonderful experience. Wow, wow, wow. See, I draw and I erase. It's got both a positive and a negative space sort of dynamic that I have in this doodle method that I use, that I lay down a lot of just a lot of noise, basically. And then from the noise, we basically carve out the signal that we don't need, or erase the lines that aren't necessary, to focus in on what we actually want to remain on the characters. So kind of pulling back on his frame a little bit. I don't want him looking too heroic. He's just an NPC sailor. He should be strong, but he shouldn't be. He's not the hero unless you have a sort of game that has a high kill ratio, and that you pull your new characters from the ranks of other NPCs that are aboard the ship, which is a mentality that I appreciate in particular. That jives with your individual character isn't nearly as important as the goal of the campaign. Sacrifice yourself for freedom. But that is not the general 5e narrative. And it's not even the narrative that I in my own game currently follow. The game that I run, for as much as I speak about characters being disposable and being able to swap out those characters for NPCs whenever your character gets TPK'd, that is absolutely not the kind of campaign that I am currently running at my own home table. My own home table is a Groundhog Day time travel campaign where it is literally impossible to kill the characters. That every time they die, they just get respawned at the beginning of the same day in the time loop. So we're at 18th level currently, and it is literally impossible to kill them. All I can do is make them reset, which is technically killing them. I recognize this is true, but it's not a threat. Like the entire campaign, there has never been a threat that your character is dead. The threat has always been that if my character dies right now, is all of our work wasted? Like, have I hit a saving point in Metroid where all of the spelunking into these new environments that we've been doing, is that work going to be saved, or are we going to get killed before we can create a save point for our characters to be able to retain this space that we have, which is how this campaign works. When you have a time travel campaign where they're like a Groundhog Day, where the results are only temporary setbacks, it's a very different type of campaign. So it honestly, it's working. I can feel it working like a slingshot inside of me, where the longer, I mean, it's going to be, we're at 18th level. It's going to end up being, it's going to cap at 20th level, of course, and they'll figure there are ways for them to get out of the time loop, and they're becoming aware of that fact. So now it's starting to become a conversation at the table, like when exactly are we going to exit this loop, and what is that going to mean to the completion of the campaign? So of course they can't actually finish the campaign if they're still caught in the time loop. So that's going to be a reality that they're going to have to eventually deal with. But they have, for now, they recognize the how useful the time loop is for their characters' goals, and they don't want to give it up. Which means I get to start threatening it, right? Whenever your characters start valuing something, that's a signal to your DM to threaten it. So, which is why players are so paranoid about DMs, not letting the DM know what your plans are, because they don't want to be threatened. But that's kind of like kids that enjoy horror stories. Of course, they want to feel threatened. They want the adrenaline surge of risk. And because of the nature of the Groundhog Day itself, it's the whole point is that nothing matters. There is no risk. So you have to start building that risk into the campaign and find different ways to threaten, like to impede them. To, like, my mentality as a DM overall has always been that the DM can't stop the players. You can kill the character, but if they have a goal in the campaign, they're just going to build, if their character dies, it's just an excuse for them to build a more optimized character that's optimized to deal with the scenario in the campaign. I used to have a player that would change his characters whenever we would move to a new dungeon, because each dungeon would have different threats. He's like, well, this character is no longer optimized to deal with the current encounters that we're dealing with. I want to change my character, but I would build the challenges specifically to threaten the characters that they had. Because as a DM, I would learn, oh, okay, they're really strong against this. Like, there's no reason to try to confuse or charm them. They're just going to be able to succeed at that. So, like, face stuff is like no value. So let's focus in on like undead instead, for instance. And then I challenge them with a bunch of undead type creatures. So then, like, that's my silver bullet against them right now. This player would be like, well, I don't want to play this. I'm going to build a new character, and then big surprise, that character is really good against undead. You know? And so then it's like, okay, well, now I have to adapt, and I have to change the threats. And so now it's there's a big elemental risk that gets introduced into the campaign. And so the player's like, well, I'm going to retire this character and make a new one, and this one is strong against elementals. Like, okay, great. So that's the cat and mouse that I've experienced as a DM throughout the 3E era into the 5E era, and it kind of, more than anything, the players sculpt the kind of DM that you become. So it's useful to have, as much as it is useful as it is to play different types of games, to have a different approach mentality. It's also important to have different teams that you as a DM, using the same system, approach different teams to see how they approach resolving the same game that you're already playing. Like, if you want variety, you don't need to necessarily quit the game and keep the players, because the players are going to look at what optimization strategies do they have that they've developed as a team, what works for them. And if you switch games, they're going to attempt to find how do the roles that we as players have formed our A-team around, and how can we apply those roles to the new game system. They're attempting to play the same game with different mechanics. So if you're looking to change if you're looking to expand as a DM, it is as important for you to find other people to DM for as it is for you to consider what game are you running. So the answer might not be ditch the game that you're playing. The answer may be ditch the team that you're running for, to find out how other people create new solutions. So that's that in many ways can be a less convenient solution than trying to convince your current team to play a different game altogether. If you're feeling bored and burned out as a DM, consider changing your team. There you go. That's a path. I don't think I hear that a lot these days, because beating up what game system you're using is the current trend. At least in my algorithms, the current trend is what game is better than D&D, or what do you want to play if you don't want to play Pathfinder or 5th edition, or what independent games are out there that I can explore that I haven't before. You don't hear a lot of conversations about what does your team do and where are they at in this equation. And if they don't want to change games, then what are you supposed to do now? The answer is you're supposed to change teams. It's not the player's fault if they enjoy a certain type of role inside of a specific sort of game that they are not finished playing yet. Like if you're level 15 in WoW and you've got 300 hours worth of content to play through, changing to raid or whatever is like not the solution for the best experience that you want to have as a player. It's like, I want to dig through some of this content. I'm like just starting to get the gist of how this game works. I don't want to bail on it and go play something else because my teammates are bored of it. I'm probably just going to join a different guild. I don't know what that rant was based on, but there it is. So take that for whatever it's worth, kids. Longtooth is talking again. Let's listen to what he might have to say of value. Maybe some of it makes sense sometimes. You with that haircut, you're looking far too. You're looking like a hero. You feel like a third level hero, not a sailor right now. So I need to. Bring you down a few notches, buddy. So we're going to give you a hat. Takes away your special hair. NPCs don't deserve special hair. That is a strict rule in NPC token production. The more important you are, the more unique and interesting you're going to be. So I want this guy to be less interesting, less unique, more of a bro. Even still, far too mighty of a pose. We need to dumb down this guy's pose so he doesn't feel so action oriented. Because he is to take orders, not to give them. But right now he looks like he's got a thing or two to say about, I don't know, freedom. Don't know. Yo-ho, fiddly dee. There. Still feels, yeah, feels kind of level 2, level 3-ish right now. A little more, it's got a little more punch than the thing I want. A little less boldness in the chest. Not bad. So far, so good. We're coming along. Go. Very broad shoulders. Bring that in a touch. Do, 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 do. Just gotta bring that bulk down a bit. Ugh, still has that Prince Adam feeling to him. Still feels like he's more important than he's supposed to be. We need to maybe ugly him up a little bit more. We'll get to that. We'll make him ugly. Let's just work on the body frame a little bit better. Gotta make sure I don't make his shoulders too square. If they're too square, he looks like a hero. Gotta make sure we don't let this guy get too heroic. It's not his role. The thing about NPCs is you have to make them look competent, but not overly heroic. Like this guy should not be looked to as like the guy that's going to take over the boat. Be calling the shots like in any way. He should be competent, capable of following direction, and assisting the heroes to accomplish their goals as necessary. Mainly is just being part of a weapons crew. That it basically becomes faceless in that process. I think this these Spelljammer mechanics are a really great soft introduction to squad mechanic, squad commanding, because when an NPC becomes part of a weapon crew to fire a siege machine, they stop being considered individuals while they're participating in that task. The siege commander basically becomes responsible for the hit point pool of the weapon and the team that's working the weapon, and for the most part, the team isn't targetable by like siege weapons in particular, but so like you have to be able to get mounted weapons or creatures on deck to be able to actually attack the siege crew directly, but while they're under the command under the command of a siege commander, the siege commander can use their own hit point pool to prevent damage, hit point loss to the siege weapon and the crew that's operating the siege weapon. So it's a very soft introduction to the larger command mechanics we have for. It won't be difficult for people that read this to be able to take that next step with us from now that you understand how all these vehicle mechanics work. Here's how you can treat a flotilla of flesh to be like a vehicle unto itself as well. When we were originally building the command mechanics, it was like here are creatures, like here's how you can operate a squadron of creatures, and now vehicles can act as a single creature of that same size, as though like this truck is a quote unquote squad of soldiers, but they're just being fused into this one object as a vehicle mechanic. But now that we're releasing the vehicle mechanics first, the Spelljammer kind of flips the script a bit, and it's like, well, now that you understand how all these mechanics work for vehicles, consider, if you're going to take command of this legion of 100 soldiers, how are they like a vehicle? Now, honestly, because the original take on it was like these squadrons, these squads of creatures that you're commanding are kind of like a mount, and a lot of the mechanics that go into commanding soldiers in formation is very similar to riding a mount, but these vehicle mechanics are similarly like as though the vehicle itself becomes kind of like a mount. So there's a related language there that we're building. That I am appreciating. Let's go like this. This guy's coming along. He's coming along. It's like He-Man toys. They all use the same muscle body frame. So it's really difficult in He-Man to distinguish from a hero versus just a background guy because they all have the exact same toned body. It's like, you're no more buff than the next dude. What makes you so heroic? It's like, well, I have a red shield. It's like, wow. I guess you are a heavy hitter. But isn't that just a fitting meta-narrative for a toy, a line of toys that all the characters would look the same except for what toys they have? I think there's a commentary there. I don't think I really want to bother building a thesis out of it, but it's just something I've observed. There you go, making this guy's shoulders all squarish again. Just want to get that. Come on, Kearney. Just let it flow. I think this guy's gonna hold a rope. Definitely needs less of a belt. You can't have too much of a belt. Generic guys need less gear, less belt. Less awesome looking stuff. Bringing that pose a little bit. That's a little bit too mighty of a stance for somebody of your stature, sir. There we go. No, wait. There. Hey, thanks. Hello. Oh no! Welcome to the mix, man. Yeah, I make D&D art. Right now we're working on Light of Xaryxis from Spelljammer Adventures in Space from D&D. I'm on 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, for 2 hours about this time. I got about an hour left of stream this morning, a little less. And about 50 minutes worth of stream left today. And then on Saturday, I do an hour or so of basically project development and basically an update diary on where we're at in the production of the book that we've been working on. And if you check back at the beginning of the session, it's we were going through the layout here for the book that we've been working on, waiting for Microsoft to catch up. So yeah, this is the book that we're working on. The back 25 pages of this 100-page document. The first 75 pages is developing and deepening the combat and exploration mechanics that are available for Spelljammer and space exploration in general for 5th edition. But the back 25 pages of this specifically is using the rules that we develop in the document to translate, or basically respin how to run encounters in Light of Xaryxis. So these are This is just one of the many tokens that we've created so far for the different type of NPCs that you'll be encountering and interacting with, and in some instances having be aboard your crew throughout the adventure of Light of Xaryxis, so that when you pick up the supplement of, like, you know, here's a different way to run space combat in, you know, in Spelljammer, we also provide for you a proof of concept by converting the entire adventure of Light of Xaryxis into using these mechanics. So if we're going to do that, obviously we should probably provide some token assets as well. So we provided all the creature tokens, all the ship tokens, all the maps for the different encounter area, like all the challenge areas throughout Light of Xaryxis. But now we're down into the nitty gritty of providing the creature and NPC tokens as well. So work in progress. It's a Herculean effort that we are performing. And then Mondays and Thursday nights, we have a stream for Eberron Adventures, where we've been writing and creating content for an Eberron adventure for 7th, 8th level characters. That is currently going through the editing process, but we've been doing cartography for that on Mondays and Thursday nights. And then the martial power system development that we've been doing for martial player options. That had been on Monday afternoons, but we moved that to Tuesday because 3 streams in one day is a little intense. So we've broken that up. So we have the 2 streams on Monday in the mornings and the evenings. And then on Tuesday, we have the morning and lunch stream that we run for the development. And then on Thursday, we have the evening stream as well. So we put in probably like around what? 10, 12, like so around 16, 18 hours worth of art streaming on a weekly basis on YouTube like this. So definitely like and subscribe, stick around, see if you dig the vibe, and be welcome to ask questions and stuff. So newcomers are welcome here, and thank you for checking it out. Yeah, definitely don't want to become too heroic. And we'll color all these once the tokens are all done in the black and white. Then we'll go back through and we'll color them. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Thinking about giving this guy a rope. It's like, you know, it's like a generic rope. to help really emphasize how unimportant he is. Like, you're so unimportant, your work, you're handling rope. Not to say that rope use isn't a valuable skill from previous editions. It's just heavily de-emphasized in 5th edition. So basically, it's a dog whistle now for how unimportant your character is, depending on how often you depict them carrying rope. So, it used to be very valuable in 1st edition to have that rope, but it's just not a power move anymore in the 21st century. Being the rope bearer doesn't have nearly the narrative weight that it used to have. Changing times, rope bearers, take notice. You're being phased out of the heroic fantasy. Ugh, such square shoulders. I tell you what, man, if my fighter died, I'd probably want to have this guy sit in and run this guy for the rest of the session. Figure out what he's got going on. I keep fighting these shoulders because the more, you know, statuesque he is, the more he steps forward from being an NPC into somebody like, who is that guy? It's like, you know, cool your loins. He's just one of 8 sailors that's on the ship that your characters start off on. He's just a generic token. He's literally one a dozen. He's not supposed to be a big deal. So I'm really trying to not make him look like somebody interesting, but sometimes they just look interesting, despite my best efforts to make them boring. That is not a flex. You should be able to make very generic, boring characters, like background stuff, like you need to be a really well-rounded illustrator with really good narrative. You need to be able to have a wide array of body types, desirable and undesirable, that you're able to render effectively, so that not everyone in your, like I was saying, not everyone has that He-Man power build. You know, what are you? I am the shoemaker. It's like, well, why does it look like you can lift a horse? Because it's the only body they would afford to mold. It's like they really should have like a puny human frame for the He-Man universe. But you know, who's gonna buy the tailor? You know, it's like what are you, mini seams? Like, get out of here. You're selling toys for a male power fantasy to 7-year-olds. Everyone's gonna be buff as hell, and it's just gonna be who's got the red shield versus the blue shield, you know. But that's kind of the starting space for a lot of us. Like when we start exploring fantasy illustration, the fantasy genre, we start off with the heroes, and then it becomes a process of stripping away that heroism to what's the core elements of this just being a human being. And like, can I make a decent looking guy but not heroic quality? Like, you know, like maybe he gets swiped, probably not, you know. Like, that's ideally where we're trying to go with this guy. This is looking still way too much of a Chad just to be a generic. So I'm probably gonna have to like ugly him up a little bit. But he is a sailor by trade, so I mean, like, in 5th edition, all he really has to do is hang out, eat Doritos, and have good aim. So I guess in 5th edition, your sailors are more like drone pilots than you know, a master of the line. It's like he has to throw himself up onto the rigging and jump from dizzying heights into a net to be able to effectively make the ship go. That's all been stripped away. Not that I mind. I never liked the crew. I don't like having to manage a crew as a player. With boats, like, the more crew there is, if you throw a fireball at my deck and now all my crew's dead and my boat operates like crap, that sucks. That is a shitty day for you. I mean, that's realistic. That you know, if your crew got fireballed and they're all dead, yeah, your ship's gonna perform poorly. But under those circumstances, you're not forcing your wizard or your cleric to sit in a chair all day either. Like, there's pros and cons of these different vehicle mechanics in 5th edition, and you kind of gotta know what silo you're in right now. Like, sorry, there was goose going by. I am totally content with like an actual boat requiring actual crew, because you're actually using wind to actual your boat to push. Actually. So it makes sense that you would have crew aboard, you know, a boat, but like, Infernal War Machines only require one driver. Spelljammers only require one helmsman. So this guy's either pointing a really big gun or he's loading rocks and sticks onto them. Like, he's not that important. So really trying to de-emphasize. There we go. That should help. Bring this in a bit. That feels better. It's starting to feel a little better. Taking away that power stance. Not like he's screaming to a theater, an amphitheater of like 5,000 fans or anything. He's just putting a really big bow, a really big arrow. He's on a ballista, you know, like that's. You lug rocks from there to here. Just bringing in his arms just a little bit, and all of a sudden he's looking so much less of a hero. He literally requires less space now than he did when we began this. So everything about him is being deflated right now. We saw who you could be, but that is not the life that was dealt to you, sir. You pass butter. Yeah, add just a little bit of action into where this guy's at. That's my 20-minute timer. Time for a coffee break. I keep things on a 20-minute timer so I don't get lost inside of a particular piece. Like, I'll allow myself the indulgence of diving down a rabbit hole to mince on some sort of frame, like chest here or whatever. But that 20-minute timer helps me keep perspective about, like, where am I at holistically with this project. It's 7:20 here a.m. in Seattle. I've got a little less than 40 minutes left to play today. So, like, am I going to get this guy done? I'm only doing the line art right now, and it doesn't even have to be great. Just got to sketch it out to the point where I'm happy with the stance and the pose. I could have just mudded this in real quick and moved on to the other thing, but I want to get some sort of semblance of, you know, completion. Pull his arms out just a little bit. The more single column, like if I don't have the arms out at all, and like breadth expresses action. And while I've been spending most of my time just beating down this guy about how unimportant he is, he's actually really important to make your siege machines go. So you actually, you know, he has to be, he can't be passive. He is an active component. So I want to make sure that as I'm controlling how mighty this fellow is, I'm making sure he's still expressing that he is an active participant. Like when we get to the passengers, I can have them just be fearful. Being thrown onto a boat and then flying off into space when you've never been in space before, that's gonna be a harrowing experience for the generic background static characters that are on the boat with your with your characters. Let's do some flame. Pull his arm out a little bit like that. There we go. Heavily de-emphasizes his might. Yeah, I'm really just disintegrating this thing, aren't I? A modest belt. The mightier belt, the larger, the more of a like a professional wrestling world champion belt sort of affair you've got going on, the more you're emphasizing the might of the character. So when you want to have an NPC, you want to drop the muscle mass, take away. Hold on, I gotta fix my chair. Don't have them look you in the face. I always have them looking off to the side like they know there's something more important they need to be doing than staring at the camera. Reduce the amount of muscle mass that the character has. Unless they're supposed to specifically be an ox, the muscle and tone denote power, and so you want to de-emphasize that unless the character is supposed to be powerful. So like generic NPCs, they could be strong if they're like specifically supposed to be strong. You can add that bulk in, but like a normal like human NPC, sort of like the sailor is supposed to be, you don't want to make him like an Olympic an Olympic weightlifter. You know, it's inappropriate. That's the power fantasy that's reserved for the characters that you're portraying as a player. Don't give them too mighty of a stance. If they're not a commander, don't have them pointing at things. If they aren't a combatant, don't have them wielding weapons. Like, really emphasize that this guy's role in the adventure is more background and passive as context than somebody that you should be directly engaging with and allowing agency in the story. Don't give him cool armor. Don't give him cool gear. Like, this guy's got a belt, but he doesn't really have anything going on with it. And he's got like a coin purse here. See, now this guy's starting to look like second or third seed on the rowing team, you know? Which is exactly where we want him to be at. He is not jumping out as a hero. Almost has a soft look to him, which I might need to bristle up a little bit. Tempted to put sleeves on him, but that doesn't feel appropriate for the type of work that is presumed that he's doing. Hey, how are you doing, Enid? Did I miss something interesting? I'm new here and I found your channel while looking for video recommendations I'm proud to have you here. I mean, I stream every day, so we're at episode number 113, I think, of development of this Spelljammer product. So, I mean, there's been a lot going on over the past 7 months, but you're new here, so we're just making NPC token assets right now. This is just a generic sailor on the boat that your characters start off in the Light of Xaryxis. We're making NPC tokens for Dungeons and Dragons Light of Xaryxis adventure. So if you're a D&D enthusiast, a lot of the stuff that I talk about on the stream is probably going to make a lot of sense to you. If this got recommended to you as like an art stream, then I talk about like character portrayal, brush technique. I'm a digital I'm a digital artist that does maps as well as book covers and interior artwork and character tokens. I don't see any color, so but I paint in full color anyway. This is just line art right now, but there's a lot to talk about, like how do people that don't see color, how can they use Photoshop and digital tools to be able to do it anyway, and trust the math of the RGB scale over here to do the math, to do the color for us. But that took a number of years for me to figure out how to do. As far as I know, I'm the only fully colorblind artist out there that's working in full color. And if there are others, I mean, we should be building a tribe of some sort, but I don't know how much weight that actually has in the production that I build things or anything, but it's certainly something that comes up in conversation occasionally as I start building into a new color piece. Like, what colors am I using? How do I fetch colors and stuff like that? But most of the work that I emphasize on is contrast. Which is, as I understand, a challenge for a lot of color vision artists. So that's certainly something worth keying in on and having a conversation about when we get to that portion of it. This is kind of having a paper doll sort of look to it right now, which I am not happy about. I think I need to get this guy away from just having arms down. The arms down look de-emphasizes the heroism of the character significantly, but it also pushes them into a passive victim sort of role. By having their arms down at their sides, it indicates incompetence or lack of agency. But the crew that we're depicting here are weapon crew. They load, fire, aim siege weapons at the command of the characters that are commanding them. So they aren't passive. They just aren't decision making. They're generic like hireling fodder, like troops, in an army. They don't have significant importance in the story. So they want to have the appearance of competence without heroism, which is what we've been arguing with the, since we had a blank piece at the beginning of the session, and this is where we've gotten to so far. We're sculpting the language of who these characters are trying to express and how much emphasis do they have in the storyline that we're producing. So these are all factors that matter when you're portraying characters, and the tokens that you choose absolutely can help lean into that, into what your story is expressing as a DM or game master or storyteller or narrator. But we're here 6 days a week. I'm here Monday through Friday for a 2-hour block in the morning, just like this. I'll be creating. I might have this token finished today, but if I don't, I'll put it on pause and we'll finish it tomorrow, and then we'll build generic passengers that are on the boat with your characters as you leave the planet that's being attacked in the Light of Xaryxis adventure. To be, the first couple chapters of the adventure. Feeling like this collar even is making them too important. So I'm gonna want to trim that to a crew style shirt instead of a collared polo. That looks good. Got the ball joint here and here. So clavicles are slightly off kilter like that. So now that's helping reinforce that angle, that uprise in the angle of the clavicle helps emphasize that the arm is being raised. So it's pulling out of frame. And being able to lift forward with something is a more aggressive isn't the right term. Engaged. It's a more engaged character, which is appropriate because, again, these guys are loading and firing siege weapons like ballistas and catapults. That's their job on the boat. So having them have that more active stance is important. Here. I'll be back on this evening in about 10, 11 hours, probably 12. Probably 12 hours. I'll be back on to do maybe 2 hours worth of cartography for the Eberron Adventure dungeon that we've been producing. For 7th and 8th level characters that we'll publish on the DMsGuild once it's complete. This is the yeah, we're finishing up the 4th significant map. Hopefully we'll be done with it this week, and then we'll move on to the village at the start of the adventure. Oh man, look how the mighty have fallen. This guy is like so much. If you go back to the beginning of the stream, you'll see that this guy started off with some pretty He-Man positioning here, and he was looking to be a real hero on the boat. But we have knocked him down so many pegs at this point. He's looking pretty soft, which was the intention that we were going for. So mission accomplished on that front. Now we have to find the balance between his NPC status and his usefulness to the team. Nice. I think his head's too big. I think I need to fix that. Feels like his noggin's like 15% too large. You guys can call me on that kind of crap. I don't mind it. I'll probably catch it. See, yeah, that feels much less like a cartoon. And since this is only a 300 pixel square, it's technically only 1 inch. So like on a tabletop, like it'd be like this big, you know, like it'll be heavily de-emphasized. So if you're only printing in, I create the black and white tokens as a separate entity in case you want to print out these assets for play at the tabletop, but you don't want to destroy your printer's color cartridge in the process. I provide the black and white versions, but then we colorize them mainly for intent use with a virtual tabletop like Roll20 or Foundry or Albert Rodeo or whatever it is that you decide to use. Definitely not one D&D because they aren't providing a two-dimensional game space for you to use drawings. Apparently, you have to use your STLs, your three-dimensional, your 3D character assets. So we'll see if Wizards' $500 million gamble is gonna pay off for them or not. Spoiler alert: it's not. But I'm no oracle. I'm happy to eat crow if Wizards ends up home running on this thing. But the idea of creating a virtual tabletop that can't use two-dimensional assets that's a gamble. That is a bold gamble that doesn't feel like it's really in alignment to the general purchasing audience that Hasbro is attempting to monetize better than what D&D currently does. But it is a big risk making a huge multi-$100 million investment into an audience that they don't seem to really understand. I'm a huge fan of the D&D IP, of the role-playing game, of the culture in general. I'm concerned about massive investments being made by a parent company that hasn't really expressed much understanding of the core public that enjoy playing their game. It's I think it's a problem. But I am not bagging on Wizards today. That is not the goal of the stream today. I love everything that they've put out, and I love it mostly because it's so malleable. Like 5th edition is by far just so easy to kit bash. This is what makes design for it so much fun. Like third edition had so much content pushed out. Like 40 books. It's like ridiculous the amount of content that was produced for 3rd edition. It was so extensive that in my 20s, when that system had come out and was being pushed, it's like I never got to a point where I exhausted the content in that edition. Like there was so much stuff produced, and there were so many different ways to build characters that I never felt the need to homebrew anything. Like it's like I haven't even explored the actual options yet. It's why would I need to dive into that space? And it was thorough. It was still very thorough. And this is somebody that I've been playing since Redbox. So 3rd edition was really enjoyable, and just did not have the motivation to feel like they could have done it better. It's like I was just getting into true naming and like shadow magic and Incarnum, and then Book of Nine Swords happened, and that completely respun how martials played. Like there was so many new ideas and takes that were being done in 3rd edition that I was like, I don't know. It was 5th edition is such a unifying mechanic that you don't really have to play every type of ranger to kind of get how rangers play. Like the subclass system really kind of locked in the roles and simplified character expression in 5th edition in general. So that, I think, more than anything, opened them up to people being interested in homebrewing, like extensive homebrew in 5e. Like I never felt the need to homebrew anything in D&D until 5th edition. This is interesting. I kind of have my exhausted drawl going, so forgive the hollow drop tone of my voice today. It's normally much more high pitch, high energy than this. I like the pseudo sicky, gruff sound to my voice. It's something I generally enjoy, but it's also not natural. It's like not my natural tone. It's my, I might be getting sick, I haven't gotten enough sleep sort of tone of voice. So if I have a stack of tissues with me on the following stream, that would not be surprising at all. Oh, hey, it's 7:50. All right, so we got about 10 minutes left to stream. That is, let's fix our clock. Give us 10 minutes. I don't want to run over. So when I'm done here, I log out and I go do my day job. I come back home and I do more work off screen. Like, not everything I do in book production is done here on stream, obviously. There's 110 pages worth of book that we're working on. So obviously I'm not going to do every instance of it on stream. So I come home and I start working on the book. And then when we get to in about 11 hours, I should be streaming from probably 7 till 9 tonight on more Eberron cartography, which I am really looking forward to. I'm really pushing through on finally gotten through all the water, and the rest of the document is the rest of the map is just kind of flowing. So really happy about that. We can tilt this angle here on the arm just a snutch. Hey, text happens. What's up? Man, keep it up. Thanks. In the future, you will see that you will succeed and you will have a giant community. That's sweet of you. Thank you. I used to be far too taken in by quick, get rich quick. I chased a bunch of different like business opportunities. And a lot of like hype marketing stuff, like real estate and investments, insurance licensing. Like I pursued a lot of different industries that all of them were promising, if you're good at this, you can make some really good money. And I met a number of people that were really good in those industries and made a lot of money. So I mean, the different pursuits I've had in my life. I don't begrudge or feel like I've been disappointed or lied to at any point, because I've met a number of different people that have been ultra successful in different industries. But I think I've gotten to a point, I'm almost 50. So, I mean, I've gotten to a point, I think, in my life where I don't believe in hype at all anymore. I recognize that any success I'm going to have is going to be slow and earned, and I don't mind the work. Artists do the work regardless of the fame. It's if it's real art, it's something that you don't have a choice in producing. It drives through your head until it demands its production is completed. So I just I think there's probably value in this sort of work, in that but it's not going to be anything that is going to grow overnight. Like after a year of streaming, like I've crossed over a year at this point, and I think the people that show up and stick around and enjoy this stuff are people that are just honestly interested in the process. And I think that has a lot less curb appeal than like quick takes and like top 10 list of whatever magic items are cool for this character. I don't do aggregate work. So like, I think the people that show up and stick around are people that are honestly interested in like this just ridiculous long tail pipeline of producing work. And it's just the struggle itself, I think, is what I'm bringing to the channel, is like looking at like how mind-numbingly crushing art, like asset production or like design work can be in general. But So yeah, I think there's value to this work. I just don't see it. It's just I gotta be ready for the years of work that are gonna take to be able to build into a community that's gonna be of people that are like, yeah, we like the slow grind. Is what we crave. This is what I'm compelled to do. But I think everything has an audience. It's just a matter of how long are you willing to stay in the game for them to find you. You know? So appreciate thanks for the words of encouragement is what I think I'm trying to say. It's very sweet of you to say that, and I appreciate it. So I'm starting to get out of, I'm going to go back because I think I don't like where this settled. I like where that arm was at, though. There. There we go. But yep, we just keep doing the work until it's done, and then we move on to the next thing. Almost out of time. Now, even this feels like too structured of a shirt. I'm probably gonna have to break this down a bit. I know as an artist, I tend to have really thick legs. I have a difficult time with like spindly legs. So one of my own personal efforts is to work at body mass, and like a lot of my bodies are like bottom heavy. So I'm attempting to pay more attention to that over the following 7 months to see how much that crops up in the character arc that I do. Because we got like the 30 some odd tokens we have to do here for Light of Xaryxis, but we also have to do like maybe 20 for the Eberron adventure as well. So, and we'll end up going through this same process with Eberron characters instead of Spelljammer characters when we get to that point in the process. So, but that's a 100-page adventure that our editor is still chewing on, and I do not blame him for taking time with it. Hey, I told him, don't worry about it, take your time. But it's also just like a lot of content that's being converted over to a structured adventure format. So we got a lot on our plate we'll be punching out here in the next 7 months. And then once that's done, the Martial Powers project that we work on Tuesday, that'll be into edits probably in September, I want to say. And so when this book and the Eberron adventure drop off the workbench and get published, then the Martial Powers book will be the next project that we focus our attention on. And we've literally been developing that for a year here on stream. So if you check out the Martial Powers playlist that I have on my channel, you'll see how that's evolved over the past like 55 weeks. Like nothing we do is fast here. Nothing is quick production. It's all incredibly large documents, heavy lifts, system design, like really in-depth projects. That's my timer, and it's 7:58 here in Seattle, so I'm gonna have to cut stream and pay Caesar what is due unto Caesar, and put in my 8 hours of flesh. So I will be logging out here in just a minute as soon as Muse lets go of me. So far, so good. I mean, it's not done. It's just a simple sketch. It should have been done by now. I'm mincing on this stuff way too much. I should be hammering through this with less concern and care. It's just sometimes I care too much. And that's not like we're wasting time. We're talking about like visual storytelling and how the type of token affects the expectations of what that character means inside your story. So I don't feel like I've wasted my time, but I always have expectations of things moving more quickly than they actually do. So, but yeah, this guy's super generic. I'm going to, I think I need to bring his neck down just a little bit more again. Maybe drop it 5%. Yeah, looking good. And then we can zoom up a bit. The more of the body you show, the less important the character really is. Unless they're looking at you straight on, in which case they're an action character. But this guy's looking off to the side, and you're seeing a lot of his body. That should tell us he is not very important. All right, I gotta go. You gotta let me go, Muse, baby. I'll be back tonight in about I reckon in about 11 hours we'll be back on, and so we'll change gears and we'll do cartography. I'll show you guys a quick preview of what that's looking like, and then we'll bounce out for the day. But here is the 74-inch map that we've been building in Eberron. Here's our grid. We recently finished up the water. We've been working on the interior wall space. Here we've been breaking that up. So we'll finish breaking up the wall texture, and we'll start adding in ground, the floor texture throughout these different areas. That's what we'll be working on tonight. So if this stuff is cool to you, if you want to see more of what we got going on, you're most welcome to like and subscribe, and check out some of the other content, the other playlists that we built. And I will be back this evening to keep on keeping on with y'all. So thanks a lot for the support, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks a lot.